Okay, here we go. Welcome, Baruch Hashem. Welcome to the fifth part of the class. The world is holy and ready for Moshiach. This is in the series of Kita Redemption in Our Hands, episode 34, part 5. I don't have the fancy schmancy setup that we had, so sorry that those that are getting used to a really clear production. Here I am in a basement in Philadelphia, but I'm babysitting here for my grandchildren. So that's special. And if I get tired, I can even catch a nap. So I hope that you listening over here don't get drowsy, but bear with me as we go through this class. Okay, this is really good stuff. So we have been exploring the Dvar Malchus of Parshas Vayeitzei, this that the Lubavitcher Rebbe spoke in his most intense and incredible talks about where the world is holding. And of course, the Rebbe sees things with a clarity, with an internal clarity, as he's seeing things from the essence out, as opposed to we are just looking at things through observing things from the outside in. And therefore, he can see what we can't see, and hopefully our minds, by studying and learning, we can open up our internal eyes of our soul and start seeing things through the lens of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and then our internal soul can translate that into our more human consciousness, all the way down into our physical eyes, that our physical eyes behold the same reality that the Rebbe is talking about, which is the truth. It just takes a deeper look. So in last class, we were learning how the story of Yaakov, Parshas Vayeitzei, reflects the fundamental principle of the Jewish mission in this world, and that is that we're not here just to cleave to God and to connect and to experience and go to heaven, but that we're here to transform our reality, to uncover God within our reality, to uncover the divine within the world. And ultimately, we learned in last class that we can elevate the body to be on the same level like the soul. And the body should have such an attachment to God and such an experience of the divine, such a connection to the ultimate truth, equal to the soul. And when we uncover the godliness even in the body, then not only has the body caught up with the soul, which is an incredible feat. It's an incredible feat to elevate the physical world. It needs a lot of polishing. It needs thousands of years of refinement until we get our bodies to become as pure and as capable of receiving and connecting to the divine truth as the soul. But it's not only about catching up the body to the soul, but rather when the body catches up to the soul, what happens is the soul as well experiences a quantum leap in its connection to God. And the reason for that is because as long as the holiness and godliness is only experienced in the spiritual range, in the divine range, in the spiritual range, in the more elegant elements of the world, of our higher selves, not in our lower selves, is a sign that that's not God himself. It's only the manifestations and revelations of God. Because the manifestations and the revelations of God are conditioned to be receivable and transmittable to refined entities. The essence of God, however, transcends all these limitations and all these definitions. And the essence of God, in essence, cannot be beheld or cannot be experienced by nobody, neither the most spiritual of spiritual, neither the most refined of refined, neither the most abstract of abstract being, cannot grasp him. And if he wants to be present somewhere and revealed somewhere, he can do it anywhere. And that has been his desire, even to a physical stone. When Moshiach will come, that's going to be the reality of our world. God himself will have moved into the world. Moved in doesn't mean that he hasn't been here before, but that he is present within creation, within the world, in a way that the world acknowledges, recognizes, and is receptive to him, and sees itself as an expression and a vehicle, you might say, or an expression or an accommodation for God's ultimate truth to be revealed in us and through us, through both spirit and body. And we learned how that is all the story of Jacob, of Yaakov, that he builds the Jewish people not in a spiritual oasis. He builds the Jewish people in a very dark, challenging places that were very antithetical to honesty, to ethic life, to morality, to holiness, a place of extreme corruption. The reason for that is because the intention is to bring God into the space that was once corrupted, a space that is once unholy. That's the Jewish mission. And on the way there, we learned how God empowers him to do that, and you get a clear experience of what's the ultimate state. We find that we learned how Jacob slept on the holiest place, the place that eventually is going to be the temple. It was the temple in the past as well, during the first and second temple period, King Solomon and the second temple period, first Beis Hamikdash and the second Beis Hamikdash, and it will be the eternal capital and the eternal temple of God during the third temple. And what happens when Yaakov and Jacob was in that place? We find that he was in a horizontal position. He was sleeping all night long. And the next day when he woke up, he left already. I mean, he spent a few moments there celebrating what he just experienced, but he left. And we asked the question in the discourse, this is the main point the Rebbe is talking about. He says, I don't get it. How can it be when you're in the holiest of places? Why would God orchestrate it that he would be sleeping? And the point that the Rebbe brought out is that sleep can be considered a very, very compromised state of a human being, a very unimpressive state, a very dysfunctional state, we might say, in the human condition. We are in our weakest when we are sleeping. We are in our least performance when we're sleeping. But on the other hand, sleep, in this case, illustrated something much, much higher. And that is that the mind and the feet are on equal standing, on equal footage, if you might say, the head and the leg. And that does not mean that the head is diminished. It means that the foot and the feet and the rest of the body has been elevated. The head usually is the seat of a person's spirituality. The feet is the final state of a person's body. So the feet represent the lowest of the low within the human being, the most physical, or the physical, most materialistic element, the physical of the physical. And the head is the spiritual of the spiritual. And when it comes to the holy temple, where God's essence is revealed, like Jacob says in the morning, I had no idea that this is Beis Elokim. How awesome is this place? This is the house of God. What's a home? A home is not where a person projects their qualities, their personality traits, their talents. Talents you do on stage. A home is where you're comfortable and you are as you are, your full self. So being that this is the home of God, Jacob says, that's why when God's essence is revealed, your head isn't any closer, your spiritual soul isn't any closer than your feet. And God actually desires to live in the physical. So he's just as comfortable in our feet as he is our head, when our feet is doing what God intended feet to do. You see, usually the problem with the feet is that because the feet are not sensitive to God, meaning because the material world is dense, thick, and selfish, meaning only aware of self and not in tune with a higher reality, versus the head, which is thinking, which is always inquisitive, it's always inquiring, it's always searching, it wants an answer, it questions. So therefore the head can discover God, and the head usually has an easier time complying with God. And the feet, which is the material side of the person, the physical side of the person, is busy pampering itself. It's busy stuck. It's busy engrossed in its own existence. So then God can reside in the head and he can't reside in the feet. Or the head might receive godliness and the feet doesn't. But once we bring the feet on board, that the feet behave like God wants feet to behave in accordance to God's will. What does that mean in our lives? That our physical bodies become programmed to be run the program of mitzvot, observance, which means our bodies, literally our physical bodies, are organized in accordance to God's will. It moves and it operates in accordance to God's will. It's just as holy and just as infused with the divine essence like the mind, and maybe even deeper, because the ultimate desire of God is the physical. And that's what Jacob experienced on that night. And that was a messianic experience. The whole world will be like that when Moshiach will come, when body and soul will be on equal footage. So that's kind of what we learned until now. It was a lot. We spent 4 classes studying this and unpacking this. Now we continue to chapter 12 in the talk. So in chapter 12, the Rebbe says, oh, okay, but that's only what Yaakov just accomplished, is only phase 1 of the project. Why? Because until now we were seeing Jacob working with his own body. In other words, he accomplished the messianic goals. He kind of like trailblazed the ways for the Jewish experience, that which the Jewish people are going to be busy doing for 3,500 years of Torah history. The Torah is in the world. We're going to be busy doing exactly this, purifying our bodies and making our bodies be as holy as our souls, as godly oriented as our souls are. Now we still struggle. When Mashiach will come, we will enjoy the fruits of our labor, where our bodies will be tuned in naturally to be as facilitating as God as the soul is. That is that, but that's only phase 1. Why is it only phase 1? Because we're still working within the Jewish world, within our Jewish bodies. But that is not fulfilling yet the ultimate desire of God. God wants to fill the entire lower world. That means dira b'tachtonim, a dwelling place, the Midrash says, in the low. The low means including the Gentile world, including the mundane world outside of the Jewish experience. That all of existence, all of material existence, the entire globe should be swallowed up in divine truth, like the prophecy regarding the redemption. Earth will be filled with knowledge of God. Earth, from one end of the globe to the other end of the globe, will be filled with the knowledge of God, like the sea covers the earth. There won't be one piece of earth protruding and sticking out of this incredible, all-encompassing divine experience. So all of existence will be submerged in divine truth. Submerged, and also it will be, as we're going to see soon, it will be bursting out from the material physical world. Everything in the physical will cry out its divine essence, its divine truth. It'll be awesome. I can't wait. But in any case, so the second phase of Jacob is his dealing outside of the Jewish world. And that's the content, the Rebbe says, of the 2 Torah portions, which describe the bulk of Jacob's life, of Yaakov's life. Vayeitzei, which is the first Torah portion, deals with Yaakov building the Jewish world. What is Yaakov doing? He goes to Haran. Haran is a dangerous, dark place. It represents in general the material physical world, which is hostile to spirituality, the soul coming down to a material world and having to take its very own body and elevate it. And Moshiach the body, get the body conditioned for the days of Moshiach, where all bodies will be resurrected and come back to live the godly life while being physical. So that is Yaakov's work in Parshas Vayeitzei. He builds his own family. He built his own Jewish children. It's an incredible novelty. Why? Because all the cards are stacked against the success of Jacob in building that family. And unlike his parents, where some of their children and offspring went off did not follow the path of holiness, at least temporarily until Moshiach comes. But Jacob manages incredibly success. He has all his children on board, notwithstanding the fact that his parents, this is so unbelievable, that his parents had the support of raising their children in the Holy Land. So they were in a holy environment. Yes, yet they were not successful completely. And Jacob is in the most challenging environment, the most adverse environment, and yet he manages to keep his entire family whole, as we learned last week. Mitasai shlema, his bed is complete, but the deeper meaning the Rebbe reveals, mitasai comes from mataso shlema, which can also mean his below is perfect. That means even his physical range, living in a material physical world, a place where the material is maybe stronger than the spiritual, yet even over there, it is perfectly in sync with God. But he's still busy with the inside structure of the Jewish people. The next Torah portion, Parshas Vayishlach, what do we read about? Jacob goes out to deal with the ugly, ferocious, dangerous world that doesn't want to comply with God's will and hates him. We experience the first outright, full-fledged experience of anti-Semitism. And Jacob is going to face this dark outsider. Who is that? His brother Esau, who is the father of what we know as the Western Wall, Rome and everything that came from Rome. And the enormous task for Jacob to somehow deal with that, and as we see in the Torah portion, when he finally meets his brother Esau, notwithstanding the fact that he was terrified, and he had all the reason to be scared. Angels from heaven told him, because he sent the angels to go find out what's going on with Esau, and the angels came back and told him, your brother is coming to kill you. And angels are not misreading it. He's coming with 400 men. There was everything to be scared. And in the beginning, Yaakov is terrified. He prays, he strengthens himself, he sends a bribe, he sets up for war just in case. But in the end, when he finally has the confrontation, lo and behold, to everybody's shock and complete disbelief, he experiences a complete metamorphosis in his brother Esau. Esau comes running, hugs him, embraces him, and says, my brother, let's stay together forever and ever. So what does that represent? That really means Jacob winning over the unholy world. Again, a messianic prophecy, a messianic moment, a preview of the messianic era. Now, because the world has not yet been fixed in detail, meaning Jacob is only the seed of the Jewish people, Esau is only the seed of the non-Jewish world. So this effect of Jacob onto his brother Esau was only in the potential range, but not in the final, not in the reality, in the complete application and the complete manifestation, which means in all of the details and sub-details of existence. For that, we're going to have to use a particular type of a brush and a comb and comb out all the evil that exists embedded in the heart of the human condition and the human race, and comb our way through the world, piece by piece, place by place, city by city, country by country, city by city, neighborhood by neighborhood, street by street, home by home, and then each individual person. And Jewish people will have to come into contact with the entire world and across the entire planet, learn Torah, do mitzvahs, and educate humanity. And when we're done, we're going to have Esau march together with us to the redemption. So, but had Yaakov not accomplished it with the root of all of the Gentile world, we would never be able to do it with the offspring, because our fathers were the ones who had the real enormous, incredible soul power to accomplish the big jobs. We were left with the crumbs to finish. but there's a whole lot of crumbs. So it's thousands of years to deal with it on a detailed level. And this is where the Torah now picks up in Parshas Vayishlach. It's not enough the fact that we make our own bodies. That's a challenge. But a bigger challenge is to go and deal with the big bad world and transform it and make it into a place that is hospitable, unified, a place of monotheistic belief, a place where nation by nation will drop selfish pursuits of conquest and of world dominion and of living a godless hedonistic existence, doing whatever one's heart pleases, but rather tuning into God's wishes and fulfilling what God wants of each and every one, living a higher, godlier, God-conscious life, supporting God's will, living the way with God's decency that he lays out in the Torah and in the 7 Noahide laws, which are going to be practiced by all of humanity when Moshiach comes. Now, as you can see, Jews have already accomplished major strides in this, because you see that Christianity and Islam as well has come away, even though we've watched certain dark elements are still going on, pretty evil and dark. But on a general level, so much of the world has been sublimated to become more giving, more refined, more charitable, more faithful, more honest. And people around the world want to live a godly, conscious existence. Although the news doesn't like to talk about these people too much. But there are millions, hundreds of millions, and probably billions of people who want to live their lives in accordance with a belief, a firm belief in a creator that created heaven and earth, and a desire to live. Now, people are still mistaken in certain details of it, but the general desire that exists about billions of people, besides the news outlets that try to push all these ridiculous other agendas that try to mess things up. But in general, in the world, there is a very strong desire. And even amongst those that are still mistaken in terms of their belief in God, but still there are so many refinements, because you see that people want to care for other people. There is some misguidance, but people want, you see the youth today are all fighting for certain ideological things people, and it used to be that people, all they wanted was to just increase their own pleasure, their own successes at the cost of what, I mean, I'm saying used to, talking about, for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, people took advantage. If I was stronger than you, I would swallow you and eat you. I would just do whatever I want. You're my servant. You're my slave. And you see, people don't live that way today. People care. People wanted, there should be goodness. People want to help others. All of that is the Torah's effect on the world. And this all starts with Jacob. And of course, there still needs to be fine-tuning. But the last fine-tuning is going to be done by Mashiach. Once truth will be revealed in the world, everybody in the world will click right in and feel perfectly comfortable. It won't even be such a radical change. People will feel perfectly comfortable in the Mashiach realm because people want to live that way already now. It's just that there's still confusion. So we need clarity. The clarity will come. Okay. So now we're holding over here, chapter 12. Let's learn inside. Nope. I'm on the wrong page. Give me a minute here. So since the main service of Yaakov, as the Rebbe says in Choran, where he was in Mesopotamia, that's related in Parshas Vayeitzei, was regarding himself, in what sense the revelation and the unification of the soul in the body, revealing the soul in the body, and then unifying the body with the soul. In a case, as we spoke earlier, his bed is complete, which means that his lower part is unified with his upper parts. However, the next stage of this also has to occur in the world as well. And that's why the two main chapters in the Torah of the work of the fathers are these two chapters. So therefore, we come after Parshas Vayishlach. We come after Parshas Vayeitzei. We come to the Parsha of Vayishlach. What does Vayishlach mean? Yaakov sends emissaries to his brother Esau, meaning Yaakov is reaching out to the Gentile world. For what purpose? It's referring to refining and elevating the world of Esau, which represents elevating humanity as a whole. The Rebbe says like this. It is explained in Chasidic talks that Yaakov comes from the world of Tikkun, and Esau comes from the world of Tohu. Let's explain those concepts very briefly. Yaakov comes from the world of rectification. The Jewish soul is from the world of rectification, and the non-Jewish soul and the rest of the world is rooted in the world of chaos. So what does this mean? It's a compliment to the Jewish people, but it's also an incredible, brings us an incredible excitement and what's it called? An awe of the non-Jewish world. And the reason for that is because, let's understand, the idea of these chaos are talking about two systems in existence, two divine systems. Initially, which God sets one following the other. First comes the ranges of tohu, of chaos, and then rectification comes to rectify the chaos. So then the question is, why couldn't God just begin with rectification? Why can't he just get it right in the first place? Why does he have to create a chaotic existence and then have rectification rectify the chaos? Because that itself is the plan that God had. That's the theatrics of creation. That's his entertainment, if you might say, watching this amazing spectacle, if you might say, this amazing dream of his come true, where things are created into the biggest mess possible, which any analysis would come and take stock of the mess that was created at the beginning of creation, especially through the sin of the tree of knowledge and the consequential sins and all of that, where everything becomes so unrectifiable and so beyond repair, and everybody would write it off. And God says, I'm going to sit back with a big bag of popcorn and I'm going to enjoy watching how all of this turns around, because my ability to repair is infinite. So even if it's an infinite beyond repair mess, we can still fix it. And I'm going to allow my power of rectification to enter into existence, and that's the Jewish people and the Torah. So let's first give it a little bit the Kabbalistic terms. Kabbalistic terms, what caused the chaos? So in Kabbalistic terminology, it explains that when God emanated his energy initially into the vessels that are going to serve as the containers which are going to shape and form the world. The concept of a world means there are certain recipients, there's shapes, there's shapes, there's definitions. God doesn't have any definitions, he doesn't have any specifics, but the creation is a container, you might say. So God initially sets up containers through which he will feed his otherwise infinite energy to be, and this will become, when he will feed his light through these containers, through that the creative energy will create a finite world. So the initial energy that God emanated was a super blast of energy that shattered the containers. It's like you set up a certain system and then you open up the switch and boom, the whole system crashes. That's exactly what happened. The system crashed. Why did it crash? Because the lights were far too intense to be able to hold the energy. Now, when that shattered and that broke, it created a very, very terrible big mess. Toxic waste. That toxic waste is what creates the material, the divine material that evolves eventually in the process of creation as the forces of evil, of darkness, satanic forces, evil forces, corruption, and everything that is fighting against us, against holiness and godliness. It's all rooted in that toxic waste, including just the material world, because the material world is very toxic before we fix it, before we purify it. Then what does God do? He reconstructs a whole new system. He makes sure that this system is really solid and is not going to break. And then he realized that last time his energy was way too strong. He doesn't want to shatter the second system, so he reduces the energy with an infinite reduction. It's incomparable. The lower energy that he re-emits is incomparably less than the energy that he emitted the first time. The second emission is endlessly weaker than the first one. And through that, he refunnels his light into these vessels, and he creates a system of worlds, including the physical world. But the physical world, not just the physical world, the entire range of creation incorporates within it pieces of that toxic waste. It's embedded in the final product. So what happens is you have a world that's primarily made up of shards of the world of Tohu. And then there are channels of tikkun, of rectification. Who are the channels of tikkun? The Jewish souls. They're from the new system. The Torah is from the new system. And therefore these entities, the soul and the Torah, don't need any polishing, embellishment, rectification. They're naturally, intrinsically aware of God, aware of holiness, because they never exploded. They never left their source. But what does God do? He plants our soul in a body. The body already is a mixture and it has this toxic stuff, and that's why the body doesn't want to serve God naturally. We have to harness the body. And the Gentile world in general is rooted in this intense world of Tohu. That's why naturally, originally for thousands of years, it is not in a rectified state. And they destroyed God's temple and persecuted Israel and persecuted the Jewish people. And lives were not living in accordance to God's will. And this is the challenge. Now, why is it so? Now, here's the thing. Just like the Gentile needs the Jewish people to direct them and to elevate, the Jewish people need the Gentiles. Because without the Gentiles, there's no energy. The energy that flows into the Jewish system is so minuscule, so tiny. You can't create the enormous experience of Moshiach with the lights of Tikkun. It's not a party. The Gentiles have the party. They have the fireworks. They have the enormous, intense power that their souls are connected to. But it can only, but as long as it's a mess, it's not connected. It's disconnected from its source, and it's just messed up. So the Jew has to go into the non-Jewish world, slowly but surely separate the evil that got in because of this explosion, and take out the divine potential by extracting it and connecting it to its source. And that means simple life, sorting out what is lies, what is evil, what is bad in the life, in the human experience, and direct humanity how to take the potential good in their lives and live life in accordance to the will of God. I'll give a simple example. Human sexuality. It's wild. It's beastly. All it wants is, to end. Without the Torah, you do whatever you want. And a person says, there's no guidelines at all. Whatever I feel like, whatever my appetites are. There's no restriction. The human will behave like a monkey, literally, without any sense. Now, human sexuality is really in its core. It's rooted in the deepest, highest godly manifestation. And when we live it in the right way, what's the right way? For a man to marry a woman, and not just to be intimate with a woman whenever they want, to get married and sanction their life and use it and live together in peace and in love and with commitment and devotion to each other. And in that setting, it is enormously holy and godly, and you channel unbelievable divine blessing through this holy, godly life. That has to be taught to the world. That's one example. And that is the example in all aspects of life. Now, this story, in a nutshell, is the story of Jacob and his brother Esau. These two brothers in the mother's womb are these two energies. And we know that Esau was born first. Esau, why was he born first? Because which system was first? The system of Tohu was first, this intense, powerful energy. And that's why when Esau is born, what do we see? What does he look like? What does Esau look like? He's red like a beet, which expresses, intense energy. He's covered in hair. He looks like a madman, and he was all of his life. He couldn't control his energy. Sages tell us that he, in one day, committed the three cardinal sins. He murdered, he raped, and he committed adultery, and he served idols. He had no why, because he has this unbelievable force of animalistic energy, but it's messed up. He needs his brother Jacob to help him. And that was the meaning of Jacob now reaching out to his brother Esau. Now, just like Esau needs his brother Jacob, now hold on a second, I forgot to finish. Jacob is born second. They're two twins because they represent the entire cosmic force. Jacob is born second because rectification comes second. Jacob is born like a small, timid baby. He's beautiful and small and very, very, seems to be the weaker of the two. And he really is. Threatened by his big bulldozer brother. But that little Jacob needs to fix. And Jacob has the connection. He has the mind. That's the point. He has the pure consciousness, but he doesn't have the power. His brother's got the power. He's got the mind. You got to join together the mind with the power, but the power has to be subservient to the mind, and that's the job. The fusion of the two brothers. So once Jacob did practice in his own life by rectifying his, now each of them have, Jacob has his own tohu elements. That's his body. Once Jacob runs a practice, a trial in his own life, and he's able to elevate his body to be equal to his soul, now he has to make a bigger attempt. He has to go out to the farther elements of tohu, which is his brother Esau, and bring him on board as well. And that's the meaning of when Jacob sends messengers to Esau. He's basically saying, okay, I finished my job. Now I got to fix you too. And are you ready? If you're willing to come with me, I can attach you. So come, let's join together and let's go to the ultimate redemption. Because the ultimate redemption is going to be after we finish all the work, because the physical world, which is the world of Esau, really, the Jewish world is really the spiritual world. The Jew represents spirit, and the Gentile represents matter. So Jacob sends to his brother Esau, the owner of the material world, and he says, listen here, I'm ready to join forces with you. I will give you the enlightenment, and you'll produce the power. And together we're going to build the third temple. Let's do it. And they actually, for a moment, they were ready. But as we said earlier, it wasn't meant to be completed. It was meant to be just a preview. Just like you watch a movie, you like to get the best part. They give you a short little preview, just like a little. So we got a preview of the ultimate, where Esau is rectified by his brother Jacob. They take pictures together, him and the family. And Esau says, come with me. And Yaakov says, not yet. It's going to take me a while. What he really meant is it's going to take me 3,500 years. But eventually I'm going to come to you. The verse says, Esau, later in the Torah portion, Esau says, come with me. We'll go together. And Yaakov says, no, go ahead. You're much faster than me. I'm going to go slowly until I reach you. But the Torah, if you look in the story, it seems like, God forbid it, Jacob didn't tell the truth. He said, I'm going to come to you, but he never comes. He stops in the city of Shechem, and he doesn't go any further. He never went to Seir. That's where Esau was living. So Rashi and the Talmud tells us, he meant when he says, I will come, I will arrive. When? In the days of Moshiach, which means we are going to live together in peace and harmony. Jerusalem and Rome are going to be sister cities. They're going to be reunified. Rome meaning the entire Western world is going to be elevated into the Moshiach experience, but under the Jewish king, which means under the Jewish higher consciousness. That's the story. That's the Rebbe is saying. So this represents the ultimate fixing of the physical world. Because again, Esau is not just the people. It represents all of the material physical world. Now another important point, just like we said when it comes to body and soul, that in order to equalize the body and the soul, it can only come by having a connection to the essence, by opening oneself up, by accessing the essence of God, because the emanations of the divine, the lights of God, are more receptive in the spiritual and less receptive in the physical. And in the lower end of the physical, it's not receptive at all. So only the essence has no limit, has no boundaries at all, and it can be in the spiritual and the physical equally, like we spoke about Jacob on the Temple Mount. The same is also to unify Jacob and Esau, Yaakov and Esau, which means the intense light of Tohu, which are the source of Esau. Remember, we said those lights couldn't come into containers. When they went into containers, they blew the fuse immediately. They caused a total blowout. So how in the world do we say that in the Messianic age, we're going to be able to draw down those intense lights, the source of Esau, and life is going to become ridiculously more intense and powerful. Everything is going to be like explosive. If the amount of voltage of every experience is going to be like boundless. How are our bodies going to be able to handle it? Impossible. A limited finite container cannot handle infinite energy. And yet, it will be merged together. It means the lights of Tohu are going to settle into the vessels of Tikkun, which include elements of the vessels of Tohu. They're all going to be, it's going to be able to handle it. Why? Because of the revelation of the essence of God in the days of Moshiach, who transcends both the world of chaos and the world of rectification, and he can unify both of them. This is all. And who is Mashiach? We're going back to what we learned in the earlier episodes. Mashiach is the essence. He is the soul that opens up, reveals the essence of God, because his soul is of the essence. So the coming of Mashiach is the arrival of the essence of God, God's home in this world, and therefore the unification of the Gentile world and the Jewish world, expressed in Parshas Vayishlach. And this is the sum totality of the Jewish experience. That what is the Jewish mission is to bring these two worlds together. And therefore the Rebbe says in chapter 13, these two Torah portions of Vayeitzei and Vayishlach in the service of Yaakov, which they are the first time in the Torah where it says the order of the service. The Torah is basically describing to us of what to do. They reveal the content and the purpose of the entire service of Torah and mitzvahs. Specifically after the giving of the Torah, which is mainly to bring God, to fulfill this wish of God to make a home in the world. In the words of the Rebbe, what does it mean? To refine, to purify, to clarify rather, and to purify the physicality of the body and of the world, and to make the world into a vessel for the spirituality of the soul. And even deeper, not just is the physical allowing the soul to express itself, but that the physical itself should reveal its own divinity that's in the body. The body itself is created by God. So not only is the physical allowing the soul to shine, but the physical has something to express itself, its own divine power that's in the physical. And therefore, it reaches a point where there is one continuum of soul and body without even realizing at which point you're crossing the border of soul to body. It's like the body is like just a continuation, the Rebbe says, of the soul. And it like permeates and just flows completely through and through. And this is the point of having a home for Hashem in this world, a home for God's essence. like this is going to be material, this is going to happen at the time of the true redemption, which at that time the physicality of the body and of the world, as he's quoting the words of Tanya, will become so yizdacheth, will become so elegant and so refined that it's going to be able to receive the revelation of the light of God. As it says in the verse in Isaiah, V'nigla kvod Hashem, the glory of God will be revealed, and all flesh will see that the mouth of God has spoken. What does that mean? That flesh itself, the material itself, not only won't it block the soul from seeing like it does now, but the physical flesh itself will see the divine. When we will look at physicality, we're going to see the divine energy inside of it. And even deeper than that, we're literally going to see God with our physical eyes, because there is going to be the complete perfected state of the power of the maker that was put into the creation, into that which is made. And so much so that there is a prophecy that says that stones will cry out from the walls. A stone will cry out from the wall. That means stones, which we thought were always inanimate and had nothing to say, are going to speak their own divine energy, and therefore they're going to speak up. The physical material world, the plant, the animal, and definitely the body of the human, the physical itself will, which in the physical is embedded really the power of the essence of God, is going to reveal with not quietly, it's not going to whisper, it's going to shout out its spiritual energy, its divine energy, and the divine will. Like it says that if a person is going to want to misuse the physical world in the time of Moshiach to do a sin, the physical world will protest. The Mishnah, the Midrash says that when a person will, God forbid, on Shabbat, want to pluck a fruit from a tree, and on Shabbos, on the seventh day, Holy Shabbos, it's one of the forbidden work on Shabbos. You're not allowed to pluck. You're not allowed to tear something from its place where it's attached. On Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you can do it, but not on Shabbos. So if a person will want to violate God's will on Shabbat, the fig itself will cry out and will say, "It is Shabbos today. Do not mess with me." And it could be the reason why the sages say a fig is because according to our tradition, the tree of knowledge was not an apple. The mistake everybody makes, it was an apple. It was not an apple, but according to the sages, it was a fig. So that very fig, which led the world into corruption, in defying God's will, by the tree of knowledge, the tree did the opposite. It was seductive. It beckoned the human being to act contrary to God's will. When Moshiach comes, the fig itself, the Rebbe doesn't say this last point about he says it brings the idea of the fig, but not that it's a tikkun. Could be it says somewhere else, but I'm just occurring to me right now. The fig itself will be reached a place where it will be completely transparent to its divine source. So how can it, if God is its essence, how can you defy God's will? And so is with everything. A person will approach their wife during the time to have, this also says in the Midrash, a person will approach their wife, which is your wife, kosher wife, but she's in a time when she's not kosher for intimacy, in a time of her menstruation. Then her physical body, the physical flesh, without her having to talk, will yell, "Don't touch me." Physicality will be completely tuned into God's will. It will reveal God's the will of Hashem. Now, to a certain degree, because we're getting closer to Messianic age, we're already experiencing stones talking, right? Inanimate matter speaks to us, from the GPS machines in our cars to our phones that can talk to us and alert us to things and talk back to us, and Siri talks to us, and whoever you have in your phone that is your communicator, physicality is talking. So that's just in the last 20, 30 years. All of history that would be impossible to think of, that something like that would happen. And now it's talking. Only the content of what it will say is still needs to be fine-tuned, like we discussed earlier. The fine-tuning we still have to make. So the natural physical world will all be speaking up. It's divine truth. This idea that so what does that mean? It means that in a certain sense, the physical will even be more tuned into God than the spiritual. Because if a person wants to sin, what does that mean? It means that the human who has a spirit is still trying to define God's will. In other words, from the spiritual side of man, the person might be thinking, we can slip our way and not do God's will. And the physical material itself will set the person straight. Because the physical is going to be even more tuned into God than the spiritual. That concept is the idea when it says, and there's another verse in Jeremiah, chapter 31, verse 21, where it says, the woman will encircle the man. And on the deep, nekeva tesoivev gever. And on the deeper meaning, that means the woman means the recipient. So it represents the physical world. The man represents the influencer. So it represents the spiritual world, because the spiritual world influences the physical. The physical is the recipient. So throughout all of history, throughout all of world history and our entire past until Moshiach, the spiritual had to inform the physical about God's will. Naturally, the physical doesn't in any way seem to have any connection. Physicality is godless. We have a deeper conscience coming from our soul and from the spiritual side. And the spiritual is what's alerting and enlightening and directing the material. That means that the man, it's a masculine world. The man, spiritually, is influencing the woman, the physical. Once Mashiach comes, everything is going to turn topsy-turvy, upside down. The physical is going to be higher than the spiritual. The woman will be higher than the man, meaning the material world will be even more in sync with God than the spiritual world. That's how godly all of existence will become. And now there are some important footnotes over here, but I'm going to skip them because I would like to finish the subject. It's worth looking. I'm just letting you know that those that are following and learning inside the talk, it's worth learning them. Now we go to chapter 14. Now, this purpose of the Torah and the mitzvahs, that the Torah, that Judaism, the purpose of Judaism, which is actualized through the Jewish people, through the Torah and the mitzvot, purifying the material world, although this has been always the objective in Judaism, but it intensifies, the Rebbe says in chapter 14, it intensifies on a much stronger way in the last 200 to 300 years. In the last 2.5 centuries. Why? Because that's when Chasidism came to the world. And Chasidism opened up a much deeper level of the Torah. What does the Rebbe mean over here? Or what is he saying? Prior to Hasidic teachings, when we were only privy to a more external element of the Torah, so we did not see the Torah as deep as we see it today. The Torah was only revealed to us on a more external shell level. Then it wasn't so clear that the purpose of Judaism is to elevate and sublimate earth. Most people actually thought, even though they were very religious and very observant and even very scholarly, that the purpose of Judaism was to get to heaven, was to become more spiritual. and more spiritual. And most people those who were seriously engaged in their service of God, felt that the best way to serve Hashem is to neglect the body, to dismiss the body. There wasn't an emphasis on infusing the body and with holiness and godliness. Now, Torah and mitzvot were always geared towards the physical, because a mitzvah is always a physical action. And even the Torah, most of the Torah that people studied was always about the legalities and the divine program for the physical world. How God wants us to set up a kitchen, how God wants us to set up a wardrobe, how God wants to set up our businesses, how the world should run. So the Torah is talking very much about the material physical world. However, people always understood this to mean that by us studying and learning it in the material physical world, doing mitzvahs in the material, it helps strengthen our soul. And eventually our soul leaves the body and it goes to the party, which the party is in heaven. So the emphasis was very much the heaven part, the Olam Haba part, the spiritual part. There was a concept of Moshiach, obviously, which Moshiach is the happy life in the physical world, but it wasn't explained what it is that much. People waited for Moshiach as a time when we won't be in suffering anymore, but there wasn't so much of an emphasis how that is the purpose of everything, and that the purpose is really to live in the material physical world as a godly existence. Chasidism uncovered this truth of Torah. Really, it's the book of Tanya. It started with the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov teaches us, there's many teachings of him. Anybody that knows history and has studied the Hasidic movement and understands it on a fundamental level, recognizes and understands that the Baal Shem Tov in Chasidism came to introduce the service of God in all of a person's endeavor. One of the most endeavors, probably the most fundamental teachings of the Baal Shem Tov is B'chol deracheyu de'ehu. B'chol derachecha de'ehu, know God in everything. All the Hasidic masters, not just Chabad, all the Hasidic masters, what made a tzaddik was that you knew that the tzaddik is meyached yechudim, he unifies unifications even when he's having a mundane conversation. Or when the tzaddik is eating, before the Hasidic world, no one went to look at a rabbi when they're eating. They went to listen to a class of a rabbi. But if anybody knows the Hasidic world, people would go study and stand and sing songs while the Rebbe, while the Hasidic master, would eat his Friday night meal. He's eating food, and that because we realize that eating is just as godly as anything else. The emphasis was put on of finding the divine in everything physical and everything material. Starts with the Baal Shem Tov. However, it reached even a deeper emphasis with the Alter Rebbe, Rav Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the author of the Tanya, the author of Chabad Chasidism. And the Rebbe says, why? Why in general, Chasidus in general, emphasizes the material world to fuse and to equalize the material with the spiritual? And why Chasidus Chabad even more? What did we say earlier? In order to equalize heaven and earth, in order to unify Tohu and Tikkun, the Jewish world and the Gentile world, in order to fuse body and soul together, we need to dig out a deeper level of divine truth. From the external aspects of divine revelation, it only reaches the higher realms and not the lower realms. It's only from the essence of God, which means that in order to go more external, you have to go deeper in. When you have a deeper, higher, less limited godliness, then you can connect it even farther out to things that are more distant and the physical is the most distant. So you need to go deeper. Hasidism is the inner secrets of the Torah. That's what it is. It's the secret. And therefore, since we're going into the deeper, and through Hasidism, since Torah is the connector between, the Zohar says that the Jewish people are connected to God via the Torah. The Torah serves as the medium of the connection. So therefore, as a medium, not the medium, because the soul is connected to God even on its own, but as a very important medium. But the Zohar says that in this connection, there is an external and an internal. So what does that mean? That in the Torah, there is an external Torah and internal Torah. In the Jewish soul, there's external soul and internal soul. And in God, there's God's external, the face of God that he shows to the creation. And then there is the truer truth of God that is not shown. So here's the amazing thing the Rebbe says. Through the deeper Torah, through the physical Torah, the material Torah that has been studied for thousands of years up to Chasidism, the external soul, the external person, the external human being gets connected to the externality of God. But through the soul of the Torah, the deeper inner soul of the Jew gets connected to the inner essence of God. Once that is established, we have the power to permeate physicality and to transform the physical world. Within the teachings of Chasidism, Chabad dug and uncovered the essence of Chasidism. That means in Chasidism itself, there is the external of Chasidism and the essence of Chasidism. Chabad is the revelation of the essence of Chasidism. So the Rebbe brings from the fifth Chabad Rebbe that the Alter Rebbe revealed the essence of the soul of the Torah. And therefore, for that very reason, he is the only one from all the Hasidic masters who created a formula for the human mind to comprehend these phenomenal, incredible, infinite divine ideas. Because remember, the deeper you go, the less limited you are, and the more you can bring it to the outside. So the fact that a human mind could comprehend divine ideas, and especially infinite ideas, the other Hasidism, although they taught the secrets of the Torah, they taught it not in a way that is so understood in the intellect. Everybody knows that if you want to understand Hasidism, even if you're not a Chabad Hasid, you're a Belzer Hasid, you're a Gur Hasid of the Gura group, or the Vishnitz group, or the Babiv group, everybody knows that if you want to understand Hasidism, you have to learn Chabad Hasidism. Once you study Chabad, you can go back to the other Hasidic teachings and get a grasp in it. But before Chabad, you can't do it. Or if you are, it's very limited. It's only the Chabad Hasidism that explains things to the human mind. Why? Because Chabad pulled out the essence of the secrets of the Torah. For that reason, therefore, you'll also find that amongst the Jewish people, who are the ones who reach out and bring Hasidism farthest outward into the world? First of all, within the Jewish people, who were the ones? The general Hasidic world, till recently, remained very, very secluded in their own groups. They weren't really, reaching out even to their Jewish brethren. If someone wanted to come close, it's one thing. But to go seek out Jews outside of observance, because they themselves felt they're outsiders. If they're outsiders, how can we bring them the Torah? If they come in the inside circle, then yeah. Chabad, you see, has been into this, what we call the outreach of flooding the secular Jewish, so-called secular, there's no such a thing as a secular Jew, but the so-called secular Jewish people with Torah, and thereby bringing them and connecting them so many to mitzvot. That's a Chabad thing. But it's not only the Jewish people, even to the non-Jewish world. As we can see now, how it is exploding to the non-Jewish world, the deepest divine secrets are already being shared across the world. So therefore, it's primarily Chabad Hasidism that enabled this process of unifying spirit with matter. And this is the core focal teaching of the Alter Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, and all of Chasidism is commentary on these ideas to explain more and more and more how we make the physical world the home for God. This is it. And next class we're going to learn, we're going to understand, the Rebbe is going to introduce, and it is for that reason that the Hasidic holidays are all in the month of Kislev. And he's going to explain the uniqueness of the month of Kislev, which is the month that we passed already by now. And because this is the quality of that month, I don't want to make this class any longer. So Be'ezrat Hashem, tune in for the next class. I'll be traveling back tomorrow to Los Angeles. And tomorrow night I'll give a different class. So probably not going to happen. If God helps, maybe on Friday, but probably not till after Shabbos. We have a lot to catch up in the learning. But these teachings are so mind-blowing and so essential to understand the Messianic process and what's happening that it's worth spending all the time learning it well. Meanwhile, Hashem should help that instead of going west tomorrow, I should go east to Jerusalem. And why tomorrow? We should go already tonight. We should go east to the rebuilt Jerusalem and to see already the radiant countenance of the radiant face of Melech HaMashiach and the bright, incredible light radiating from the temple, and that unplugs the godliness of the entire world. Let us see that today. Thanks.